Hey everyone, Louie Loco here, and welcome to my attempts at a Dark-type only hardcore Nuzlocke of Pokemon Ultra Moon. The rules for the hardcore Nuzlocke are as follows. Number 1, I can only catch the first Dark-type out of each route or area. 2, any Pokemon that faints is considered dead. 3, no items in battle, held items are okay. 4, set mode is on. And number 5, no over-leveling. In addition to these rules, I will not be using Pokemon Refresh, any Z moves, or any Rotom boosts aside from those out of battle. Now, Pokemon Ultra Moon is no regular Pokemon game. With no gyms at all, the level caps will match the Grand Trail's greatest ace, with the only exception being the final Totem Pokemon. In addition, I'll only be showing the Pokemon that I use throughout the run to save time, and yes, I know that this isn't the steel run that I promised last time because, well, shit. Oh, fuck. Damn it. Dios mío, why? It's, as you can see, still in the works, but you'll see it sometime in the future. I don't know when, but in the future. Now, not only does Ultra Moon not have any gyms or leaders, it's also surprisingly one of the more harder games in the series. Probably the hardest thanks to Totem Pokemon, improved AI and team builds, and a whole lot of more changes. Now, as for the Dark Pokemon, there's a lot to choose on, 21 versatile options in total. However, Houndoom is exclusive to Ultra Sun, Sharpedo is only available post-game, and I won't be using Tyranitar as he's too darn good. Now, because I know you'll enjoy the video, be sure to hit that like, subscribe, and sit back and relax to see how well the Forces of Darkness fared in Alola. For our starter, we go for the cute little Litten and name it Dante. Now sadly, the cute lad isn't a dark type just yet, so he'll be mooching off of XP until he becomes an Incineroar, which won't be for a long while. Now thankfully, Dante is a jolly old boy, plus speed minus special attack, which works pretty darn well in our favor. Afterwards, we have our first rival battle against Hau, and of course wreck him with some well-timed embers. Soon after, a ball of farce almost kills me in front of its master, but thankfully we're saved by one of the island guardians, Tapu Koko. After that life-threatening event, we make it to Professor Kukui's lab and are given Pokeballs, which means that the challenge has officially commenced. Our first capture and real member of the team is Kane the Inkay, one of the coolest Pokemon designs to have ever graced our eyes. He's got a timid nature plus speed minus attack, which kinda sucks, but we do with what we have. Now, unfortunately, my man has suction cups as his ability instead of the godly contrary, but we'll change that later in the game. Our second encounter is Lucifer the Zorua at the trainer school. With a lax nature plus defense minus special defense and the ability illusion, he's sure to be a knife in the enemy's back. At the trainer school, we'll deal with the principal with some foul plays and scratches and move on forward towards Howly City. How do you say that? There, we run into the first real battle of the game against Trial Captain Ilma. We treat him the same way we treated the principal, with no respect and a problem with authority figures. We dunk the punk's face into a toilet bowl and move on with our day. Shortly after the battle, I accidentally run into Alolan Grimer on my way to the Pokemon Center, but thankfully we catch him, and we add Nurgle to the team. With a neutral nature, Nurgle is doing pretty well for himself, and he's going to be very integral, as you'll see later on. On the next route, we add Judas the Meowth to the team, and right after that, Azazel the Murkrow. Murkrow has his hasty nature, plus speed minus defense, which will be decent against Hala. And really, Meowth is only used once for the upcoming Totem battle, so he doesn't matter. So, with the team more or less full and leveled, I make my way towards the first trial and deal with Alolan Raticate. I lead with Inkay to set up Reflect, which will reduce any physical damage by 50%, pretty much necessary to deal with the fat rat. He summons his buddy as I go for a pathetic foul play, and then the next hit from Raticate triggers Inkay's Oranberry, so I switch out into Nurgle. I go for Poison Gas, which poisons the Rattata, but because this game was made by the devil himself, Raticate had a freaking Pecha Berry, which cures him instantly. Another Poison Gas does the job to fumigate the fatty as I switch into Inkay again for another Reflect, and I cut things close, but thankfully Inkay survives. Murkrow then comes out and a peck does decent damage. The next turn the Totem goes down, and I send in Meowth to end the trial with a clap of the cheeks on Rattata. With the Totem defeated, we can now catch Beelzebub the Alolan Rattata, and soon after get ourselves Delilah the Vullaby. It's got a neutral nature, which is fine by me. Now, before the battle with Hala, I equip a Sharp Beak to Murkrow to increase his flying type move damage, and finally confront the old man. I lead with Inkay to set up Reflect, hit the Machop once with Psywave, and then switch into Murkrow to take out both Machop and Makuhita with Wang attacks. Last is Crabrawler, and unfortunately to ensure a clean switch, Azazel is going to have to take the all-out pummeling from Crabrawler. He obviously dies with his hollow bones all broken, and I send in Inkay to set up a Reflect again. I then pivot into Nurgle and use Poison Gas to Toxic the Crab, but Hala goes for a full heal. I went for the Disable, which prevents Power Up Punch from being used again, and then go for another Poison Gas. Thankfully it hits, and with Power Up Punch disabled, the AI thinks that Leer is a better move than Pursuit. Why it never went with that when Inkay switched is beyond me, but I'm thankful. Crab Brawler dies to Toxic, and with that, the first Grand Trial is complete. Afterwards, we go to 10 Carat Hill and catch ourselves Electo the Sableye. He's a sassy lad, plus special defense minus speed, which is fine as he was never the fastest anyway. Next, we make it to Akala Island, where we run into Dexy and Senna. We battle Senna, who doesn't put up much of a fight, but we do have a close call when I send in Lucifer and he almost dies. After that scare, I catch myself Minos the Eevee, who you'll get to see later in the run. For now, I buy myself the light screen and protect TMs from the Pokemon, as they will become essential for a lot of the fights later. On the next town over, we battle How again, so I lead with Electo and he leads with Dartrix. Shadow Sneak barely does a thing, so I switch into Delilah. He then hits Delilah with a breakneck blitz, but this stubborn bird's neck will not twist. From here I go into Inkay to put Dartrix to sleep, set up Reflect, and 2 foul plays take out Dartrix. Then Pikachu comes out, and it hardly does any damage with Quick Attack, and after 2 foul plays, it shares the same fate as Dartrix. Next is Noibat, and with Inkay weak, I switch into Nurgle, who bites the bat to death, and Eevee is last, and he dies a similar fate. After this, Litten evolves into Torracat at the end. Pretty nice. After that, we run into a competing edgelord known as Gladion. He's a tougher opponent than Hao and a connoisseur of the dark types, so we'll have to show him who the real masters of darkness are real soon. So, I lead with Electo as he leads with not Zubat, as the feint shows it's actually Zorua. Some sneak attacks take Zorua out, and the real Zubat comes in. I switch into Nurgle, and I Fat Finger Poison Fang by mistake, as it does nothing. So a follow-up bite does the trick though. Last is Type Null, which hits pretty dang hard. We Toxicate with Poison Gas, and then go into Inkay to set up a Reflect. With Reflect up, I take some nasty Ricks and hit the Null with a Foul Play. I have to stay in and deliver another Foul Play to take out Type Null. Pretty nice challenging fight. The next challenging fight is the Totem Araquanid. Superpowered bugs against dark types. Oh boy. I lead with Nurgle and go for Protect. Araquanid's buddy comes to his aid. With the 2 of them on the field, I hit him with Poison Gas. And with the 2 poisoned, I use Protect and then switch into Cane, which is a highly risky move, but the AI is too focused on rain-boosted bubbles to go for any bug-type moves. So then I use Protect to whittle them down some more, and then go into Lecto, who I also taught Protect. Before Protect, I go for a Fake Out to buy another turn, and then Protect. And from here, I pivot into Vullaby to use Protect, and thanks to its bulk, survive some bubbles. Roost gets some health back, and with another Protect, we get ourselves the win. Whew, that was the second totem, folks. Afterwards, at the thrifty Megamart, we run into a man cosplaying as a Hypno, totally not creepy at all. In that very same art, we come across some Pukumuku body pillows, which makes you wonder if they got any of Wig. Oh, sorry. Anyways, we do some dumb battle royale or something, get to the real meat and potatoes. The third trial. In preparation, I EV train Beelzebub in attack. Now, super quick rundown on EV training. EV stands for effort values, and those values are derived from Pokemon you defeat. In this instance, Picky Peck gives 1 attack EV when defeated, and you need 4 attack EVs to equal an additional point in attack. In short, I am decimating the Picky Peck, Fomantis, and Lillipup population to get a few more points in imaginary attack stat. Does it amount to much? I don't know. We'll soon find out. It's during this training that Beelzebub evolves, and with that done, we take on the third trial. Now, this trial just plain sucks. You have to fight 3 battles in a row with no healing or changes in between, so you have to have your strategy down before the fight or else you'll wipe. I risked Beelzebub getting a burn with Magmar, but what's life without living it on the edge, eh? Now, as the totem battle begins, I go for Sucker Punch to deal as much damage to Marowak, but instead he goes for Detect, which sucks as I could have gone for a Focus Energy. Salazzle arrives to become a larger thorn in our side, and then I go for Sucker Punch again, and it fucking crits. With his one purpose served, Beelzebub then gets his skull split by a brick break. Electo then comes in for the kill with Shadow Sneak, and now we just have to deal with Salazzle. Flame Burst deals some devastating damage, but we get off a Rock Tomb to lower its speed, and a bite from Nurgle ends the battle, and the third totem is defeated. If there ever was a place to wipe, it was definitely here. One of the hardest even in a normal game. But hey, we managed it. Afterwards, we visit Gladion in his hotel room, but he boots it out because I asked him if he had any Wick body pillows with him. Anyways, we go to the fourth trial, which involves finding ingredients without ticking off the native Pokemon population. I succeed with that, and soon Totem Lurantis arrives, the other potential wiper. No, not butt wiper, folks, team wiper. Get your head out of the toilet. Now this thing has X scissors, so nothing can really last long against it, so I lead with Nurgle to poison gas Lurantis, and because thanks to his poison typing, he won't die on the first hit. I protect and go for Poison Fang to deal some decent damage. I follow that up with a protect, and then switch into Volibee, who takes an X scissor and Dizzy Pudge like a champ. Lurantis succumbs to its poison, and after a roost and some plucks, we take out Kecleon and win the 4th trial. Not that hard, honestly. Now that we can pass Diglett's tunnel, we make it to the other side and find out that Dittos have been replacing innocent people, taking their places. Geez, talk about invasion of the body snatchers, folks. Before dealing with Olivia though, we have to fight Plumeria, so I lead with Nurgle of course, and use Bites to whittle Golbat down. He gets confused by Confuse Ray, and instead of switching out, decide that life needs a little spice as I keep Nurgle in for another bite. Nurgle, being a boss, obliges and delivers a crunchy bite that takes out Golbat. Next is Salandit, so I go for Kane, who takes it out with 2 foul plays, and thus the battle ends. With the distraction out of the way, we can now focus on Olivia. Her rock types are pretty sturdy, but thankfully Konikoni City had a TM store with a Steel Wing. So Anorith is the first out and Delilah deals with him pretty well, Steel Wing doing some pretty surprising damage. Before the fight, she's also been equipped with an Eviolite, which boosts pre-Evo Pokemon's defense and special defense by 50%. So she's taking hits pretty dang well. Lileep can only sit and weep as we keep pelting it with Steel Wings, using Roost when necessary. We take Lileep down, getting 1 proc of the Steel Wing defense boost, which will be excellent for the Lycanroc that has now come out. I go for Protect, fearing the Rock MC, but instead it goes for a Bite. Now, I'm not entirely sure why Lycanroc didn't go for Rock Tomb. Perhaps the overuse of Steel Wing convinced it that Volibee was Steel. I'm not entirely sure what happened here, but I'm very thankful. And thanks to Olivia's brilliant display of idiocy, we win our 2nd grand trial. Afterwards, we attend a wonderful marriage between 2 Pikachus and get to meet the world famous Pikachu Chuster. Then we find ourselves some black glasses, which boost dark type move damage, and then head to Aether Paradise. Oh mama, Wick comes into frame and I suddenly have the weird urge to be stepped on. We meet Lucamine shortly after, and that strange urge mysteriously intensifies. Sorry, we battle some strange lily-looking Ultra Beast, and it runs off, as do I, because I have a wonderful date with Nurse Joy. She wants things to become serious between the two of us, but quite frankly, I'm not sure I'm ready for the commitment. Plus, there's the fact that I'm 10 years old, and she must be in her 20s. I break things off for her own sake. With my love life shattered, I fight Hao again, and this time his team is even tougher. We start the battle with a deluge of plucks from either side, then Hao switches out Dartrix to bring in Alolan Raichu. Man, a trainer that switches his Pokemon? Where have you been all my life? I switch into Electo, clap the Raichu's cheeks, and hit it with a fatal Shadow Sneak. Next is Vaporeon. Electo deals some good damage with Shadow Claws, even managing to get a crit that takes Vaporeon out. Next is Noibat, so I switch into Delilah again, and between Roost and Steel Wings we take it out. Hal's next Pokemon is Tauros, who I hit with Steel Wings and use Roost in between to wear it down. After the battle that lasted ages, we finally take Tauros down, and his last is Dartrix, who dies to Plucks. At the end, Zorua evolves into Zoroark, kicking off the next spike in the team's strength. The next Evo is Inkay, who becomes a Malamar. After those 2 evolutions, we take on the Cantonian Gym. Yeah, you heard me right. It's a sort of role play where Alolans pretend to be gym trainers. It's basically just a remake of Surge's gym. Having earned our Surge badge, we catch Astaroth the Pancham, who has a naive nature, plus speed minus special defense, which is not bad for a brute. And he has Iron Fists, so we're gonna have a lot of fun with that. We make our way up Mount Hamawana-Huna-Watsit, where we meet Sophocles and take part in the trial. Before that, however, we train Pancham, and he becomes the mighty Pangoro. We take on the trial, and before taking on the Totem, I teach Pangoro Bulldoze and jump right in. Totem Togedamaru is pretty tough, but we lead with Malamar and then go for Reflect as Skarmory flies in. We then switch into Pangoro, and after a single workup, go for a devastating Bulldoze that crits Togedamaru, and a Brick Break on Skarmory deals some damage, but not enough, so I switch back into Malamar, who finishes the trial with some foul plays. Soon after, we have another major battle, our first against Guzma. Now this cool dude is a Bug-type enjoyer and leads with a Gliscopod. Thankfully only has 1 Bug-type move, First Impression, which it can only be used once like Fake Out. Knowing this, I lead with Delilah, who uses Protect, Pluck deals some decent damage, but it isn't enough, so I switch into Malamar to set up both screens, and after triggering emergency exit, Masquerain comes out and Pluck deals some decent damage to it. In the red, I switch into Electo, who almost dies to a Bug Buzz. He hangs on to kill Masquerain with a Shadow Sneak, and thinking I have to sack here, I go for a Shadow Sneak to deal some damage at least, but thankfully Golisopod goes for a Sucker Punch, which fails because I went first. I stay in to use Confuse Ray, and thankfully Golisopod hits itself. Here I then go into Malamar, who finishes the battle with a foul play. Whew, that was a pretty damn good fight. After some more training and XP draining, Torracat finally evolves into the imposing Incineroar, and the team is looking pretty damn decent now. The next step on our journey is the 6th trial. Here we take pictures of ghosts until we come across the Totem Mimikyu. This little thing is actually pretty frightening. Being part fairy makes it a real threat to the entire team. Or does it, as I lead with Muck and go for a Poison Fang that poisons it, but the darn thing has a freaking Lumberry. At least we managed to break its disguise. He calls Bandit, which goes for Curse as I go for another Poison Fang, poisons Mimikyu again, thankfully. I then go for Venom Drench, which lowers poison target's speed, attack, and special attack by 1 stage. Pretty darn good move. Now with the Burn, Curse, and the Berry gone, I can't keep Nurgle in, so I switch into Vullaby, who almost dies to a Play Rough from Mimikyu. Guess that Venom Drench didn't do too much. After a Protect, I switch into Kane, who can take at least 1 thanks to his bulk, and knowing that this demon has Leech Life, I switch into Dante, who takes it very well, and then Mimikyu succumbs to the poison coursing through its corporeal veins. Our Darkest Lariat then takes care of Vanette, and the 6th trial is complete. On our way to the Aether House, we face off against Plumeria again. I lead with Zoroark, who takes out Golbat with 2 Night Slashes, and then go into Malamar as Salazzle comes in. Despite his Psychic typing, he doesn't take the Sludge Bomb very well, so I have to switch out and go into Nurgle. Crunch deals some decent damage, but this freaking Salazzle is proven to be a real threat. I switch into Dante, who takes a Flamethrower and Sludge Bomb pretty well, and then go for Darkest Lariat to finish the fight. It's then that we learn that Team Skull has stolen a Yungoos, so we prepare a rescue mission. To get to Po Town, we get some help from another man of the night, Grimsley, who's enjoying himself a vacation it seems. And with his help we get to Po Town. Once there, we fight through the army of Team Skull grunts to get to Guzma. I lead with Vullaby and Protect to avoid the first impression, and then switch into Malamar to set up Reflect. From here I switch into Nurgle, whose gunk shots force Golisopod out, and Masquerain flies out, and I go for 2 more gunk shots that wipe it out. Golisopod comes back, but I Protect to avoid the first impression again, and from here I need a clean switch to deal with Guzma, and I don't want Nurgle to die, because he's super useful, so I decide that Vullaby's time has come. She doesn't even evolve until level 54, so the pain is somewhat reduced, and yeah, she dies. Afterwards, a Rock Slide from Pangoro takes out Golisopod, and then Pinsir comes out. A Rock Slide barely dents Pinsir, and I'm forced to switch out as a Storm Throw wrecks Pangoro. I go into Dante, who takes the crit decently, and a Fire Fang puts Pinsir to rest. Jeez, Guzma has so far been the hardest opponent to come up with strategies for. After the fight, we meet the kahuna of Ula Ula Nanu, another Dark-type enjoyer, and then fight Gladian because he's angry or some shit. The fight isn't too tough, and after the loss of Vullaby, the team needs a new member. In fact, the team needs some major work, and to begin, I go play Mantine Serve for a good hour or so. Honestly, it's quite fun and a decent way of getting battle points that would otherwise be impossible in a Nuzlocke. So dude, get this. So like, after grinding for like an hour or so, I go to Royal Avenue to get some EV training items, and like, dude, I go to I think Route 8, and I begin EV training EV, and special defense by wiping the dude, I just wiped out the entire the local tentacle population. It's gone. I'm sorry, I think I played Mantine Surf a little bit too long. Now, these items give +8 to my EV gain, which means that if Tentacool gives 1, I'm netting 9 with everyone I defeat. Now, thanks to the SOS feature, I can chain Tentacools, and doing so actually doubles the EV's gained, so I'm gaining 18 with every Tentacool that gets defeated. Honestly, it's pretty darn good, and during the training, Eevee becomes the best evolution. Umbreon. There's no room for discussion there. Umbreon is the best. Period. It's during the trips of healing and chaining, I apparently chained enough Tentacools that I actually ran into my first shiny ever. Now, in all my years of playing Pokemon since I was 5, I have never encountered or bred a shiny Pokemon. And sadly, I don't play with shiny claws, so I kill the strangely colored tentacle and continue with my day. It's a freak of nature. It needs to be gone. Oh, you guys are gonna get pissed I killed that shiny. I just know it, but I EV trained the rest of the team on Route 1 Pokemon, and like I go back to like Mantine Surf for like 2 or 3 hours, and I get enough BP to buy myself like, I think like, dude, an ability capsule. Now this godsend of an item allows me to change the ability of a Pokemon, and of course I give it to Malamar, who now has his badass contrary ability. During the storming of the Aether Foundation, I find Toxic, beat Pathetic Faba and his Hypno, and square up against Guzma one more time. As tough as Guzma is, I can't help but respect the man for being a very proficient bug trainer, and honestly being the biggest badass in Alola. The fight starts as usual, Protect then Toxic, followed by a Venom Drench, some more Protect and then a Rock Slide to force Golisopod out, and Hardy Pinsir then comes out and I Toxic him, Protect, and then go for a Rock Slide. With the stall working well, Masquerain comes out as I Toxic it as well and stall it for more. And I never realized how hard Bug Buzz could hurt, but it hurts. Rock Slide takes out Masquerain, and then Golisopod returns to the field. I then switch into Umbreon, who has leftovers I obtained from the Royal Avenue, and stall it out. With Golisopod dead, last is a Vikavolt. And even with an EV trained special defense and natural bulk, that Bug Buzz almost takes out Umbreon. I switch into Dante, who manages to flinch the Vikavolt with a Fire Fang, and after that, another Fire Fang puts it to rest. Every fight with Guzma has been a freaking nightmare, and I live for it. With Guzma defeated, we attempt to stop Lusamine and get into a battle with her. Her use of fairy types makes her a real threat, and I unfortunately can't Toxic Clefable as it has Magic Guard. Instead, before the fight, I taught Nurgle Confide, which lowers the target's special attack. From here, after enough drops, I switch into Malamar, who gets Charmed. Perfect, as it sharply increases his attack thanks to Contrary. I set up a light screen, and Clefable might as well tickle Malamar for all the good she's doing, and with enough superpowers, Malamar powers up even more and begins wiping Lusamine's team. After she jumps into Dimension Hall, we now have to get some flutes to cool on Lunala. So we get the Moon Flute and make it to the last island, Pony Island. There we deal with a line of grunts from the now fractured Team Skull, make it to Pony Canyon, and fight Solaria again. To play the flutes at the Altar of the Moon, we have to get through Totem Komo. I start the fight as you would expect, with Toxic followed by Venom Drenches to lower Komo's stat. It's honestly not bad, and though Toxic stalling is cheesy, you gotta pull the cheap tricks in a hardcore Nuzlocke. Funnily enough, as I switch into Malamar, Noivern hits him with a Screech which boosts our defenses, making the Drain Punch from Komo-Omo tickle. Komo-O then dies to Toxic, and because the AI doesn't know what to do against Contrary, Noivern hits Malamar with another Screech. We wipe up the battle, and the second to last trial is complete. Afterwards, we play some sick music on the flutes, and after riding around on Solgaleo for around like 20 or so minutes, we make it to Ultra Megalopolis. It looks pretty nice. Now came the fight I had feared. Unfortunately, I cannot cheese Ultra Necrozma with Zoroark, as I was sure I would be able to see that Muck was a dark type, and not wanting to risk it, I employ another cheap tactic. Want to take a guess? Comment below what you think it is. I'll give you about 5 seconds or so. If you guessed Toxic Stall, you, my friend, are right. Toxic, Protect, Venom Drench. I swear poison types are really shaping up to be some of the more surprisingly strong types in Nuzlocks. First Crobat from the Pokemon Y flying Nuzlocke, and now Muck in this one. Ultra Necrozma dies a rather shameful death, and with one of the greatest threats defeated, we return to our own world and continue with the trial. We fight Minna, whose fairy types put up a good fight, and get her petal, and we get tasked to collect petals from nearly all the trial captains. So, we fight Elma, take down Lana, beat Kiawe and his hiker bro, get Sophocles' blessing, and beat Nanu one more time. With the petals gathered, we make a fine rainbow flower and fight the final Totem Pokemon, Totem Rebombi, another bug type. Sweet! Now I go for a very risky play. Equipped with a Focus Slash, Malamar has one purpose this battle, to deliver a single Topsy-Turvy which reverses Rebombi's special attack boost. With his work done, I switch Nurgle in and begin with the whole Toxic game. The quiver dances from Rebombi make me gulp, but thankfully Venom Drenches take care of the speed and the special attack boosts. And soon, just like so many of the other totems, Rebombi dies to toxic poisoning. The final obstacle now is Hapu, the newly appointed kahuna of Pony Island. We meet her at Executor Island and kick off the battle. She starts with a Golurk as I start with Zoroark. I go for a Foul Play which knocks out the Golurk in one hit, and then Big Boy Mudsdale stomps in as I go for a Protect. I then switch into Umbreon, who takes the Tectonic Rage like a complete champ. 2 Moonlights heal Umbreon up quite nicely, and afterwards I of course hit it with Toxic. A full heal and another Toxic later puts us back into the pace of things, and after an hour or so it finally dies. So next up is Gastrodon. I do the same to her and then switch right into Kane, who begins superpowering it to become more powerful. With its death, out comes Flygon, and knowing I can't take another Earth Power, I send in Pangoro, who delivers a Sky Uppercut that knocks out Flygon, and with that, the final grand trial is complete. On the way to Mount Lanakila, we deal with Gladion again, and while he was a decent challenge, the only thing I could think of the whole time is what's wrong with his wrist? Early onset arthritis, mate? Do you, go full speed? I mean, you should probably get that checked out, my man. It's not normal. Why are you holding it like that? Anyways, on the Victory Road, I guess, I completely avoid these fighting men because all it takes is one mishap to completely ruin the run. Here we kill Necrozma again because we can. Get ourselves a word from the word wall and make it to the third of the world. Sorry, I mean Mount Lanakila. It's like a different game, sorry. Before entering the newly formed league, I teach Hammer Arm to Pangoro, give a PP max for Umbreon's Moonlight, and I'm treated with a rather lovely scene of me and Dante ready for the end. Honestly, it warmed my heart to see my first partner and me ready for the finale. Our first pick is Acerola. Our team was built to re-heal ghosts after all. Leading with Zoroark, our Night Slash takes out Banette and Frostlass, but Lucifer gets confused in the process. So as Delmise comes out, I switch into Dante, who destroys it with a single Flare Blitz. And next is Palossand, so I switch into Umbreon, who can take the hits as I Toxic it. It full restored, so I Toxic again, heal up with Moonlight, and then Acerola goes for another full restore, so I Toxic again, so the cycle begins once more. While Acerola dances in the background, I anticipate the next full restore and hit it with another Toxic, and eventually it finally dies and Driftbloom comes out. A Toxic and 2 paybacks take out the Driftbloom, and thus the first Elite Four is down. The second on our list is Olivia. Leading with Nurgle, I Toxic. I won't bore you with the details, but Armaldo surprisingly dies to Toxic. Lycanroc is next, and Umbreon takes the Continental Crush like a boss. And however, for this battle I decided that someone else should get the limelight. So Pangoro comes out to put in the work, destroying Olivia's team with some of the heaviest hands this side of the Alolan Ocean. What is the ocean called? Hammer Arm after Hammer Arm with Bullet Punch in the mix. 2 down, 2 to go. Next is Molayne. Dante hits the Cleft Cleave with a single Flare Blitz, but it's not enough due to Reflect, and after a full restore and another Flare Blitz, I switch into Malamar, who takes out the Cleft Cleave with a single Superpower. Bisharp comes out and a Superpower nearly takes it out, but Reflect is still up. X-Scissor hits hard, but thanks to the defense boost, Malamar survives and puts Bisharp down. Metagross is next, so I hit him with a Superpower as it misses a Meteor Mash. Thank you, Arceus. A Brutal Swing from Malamar takes it out. Dugtrio suffers the same fate, and Magnezone gets taken down by 2 Brutal Swings. 3 down, 1 to go. I saved Kahili for last because from her team build I felt like she could be a little bit more harder to manage, so I began the battle with setting up Reflect with Malamar and begin raining superpowers down on Braviary until it dies, and they barely do a dent to Mandibuzz until it finally goes down after 2 more. With all those defense boosts, Malamar tanks the Flying Press from Hawlucha really well and takes it out with a single Psycho Cut. Next is Toucannon. I switch into Umbreon, who Toxics the Burb, and take the Supersonic Strike rather well. I switch again, this time into Nurgle. The first Stone Edge misses, but the next one connects as Toucannon powers up another Beak Blast. Last is Oricorio, and this dancing bird winded up being the hardest to take down of all her Pokemon. It goes for a Teeter Dance as I switch into Lucifer, who doesn't take the Air Slash very well. After a Protect, I U-turn into Dante, and because of Feather Dance, don't do too much to Oricorio. Here I play the switching game, switching back and forth between Mons as Air Slashes and Confusion rains down. I managed to land a Toxic with Umbreon, and of course Kahili goes for a full restore. Blah blah blah, Tox again, full restore again, Confusion. Jesus, will this bird not die or what? Finally, after a millennia or so, it dies. And well, now it's time to take on the champion. This time around in this game, it isn't Professor Kukui, so we have to deal with Hao. Happy Hao and his million full restores. Oh joy! Honestly, I'm surprised the cheeky bastard didn't use any revives that he's been taunting me with all game. So the final battle begins, and first out the gate is a Alolan Raichu, which I know has Focus Blast, so I have to get rid of those. Or do I? Deciding to go on the offensive for once, I hit the Raichu with a brutal stab payback and knock it out in one go. Next is Tauros, who loves his double edges. I Toxic the big beast, and after a little stalling, know that this rat is going to go for a freaking full restore. During this, I switch Kanan, who takes the double edges pretty well as he gets a superpower off, and then another wipes Tauros out, and Hao sends out Vaporeon. And as bulky as Malamar is, I don't think he'd survive a Hydro Pump from Vaporeon, so I switch out into Nurgle. I Toxic the Vaporeon, of course, and begin bathing it in venom to lower its stats. The great thing about Vaporeon is that after Hydro Pump, its only other moves are Quick Attack and Attract dropping moves. After ensuring that Vaporeon is as weak as it could be, I switch back into Malamar as Hao hits his Vaporeon with a full restore. I get a superpower off as the dumb AI doesn't know how to deal with Contrary, so Vaporeon boosts us up as I set a Reflect for Crabominable, and after a Psycho Cut, Vaporeon is dead. Thankfully, Crabominable is rather slow, and the last remaining pokes on Hao's team get taken down by the Ultra Power Psychic Squid. Booyah. And with that, we're the first champions of Alola. Well, folks, there you have it. Probably one of the most challenging runs I've ever done, and also one of the most exciting. Between the totems, the kahunas, and the dozens of other challenging fights, I had a complete ball. It was hard, but the forces of darkness show that with a little preparation, even evil can prevail. So, thank you so much for watching. Be sure to like the video, subscribe if you really enjoyed the video, hit that notification bell with a little gusto, and I'll be seeing all you next time with my attempt at an Ice-only Pokemon Unbound Hardcore Nuzlocke. Adios.